Funny thing.
Okay, good morning, everyone. Call the meeting to order. Please stand and say the pledge to the flag. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. First order of business is approval of minutes for May 16th, 2017. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, there are none.
I abstain. Wasn't here.
Oh. Okay, item number 2, confirmation and approval of claims.
Our payments that we made this month come to a total of $616,095.35. This particular month for Fund 1 was $157,767.73, which is very much in the normal range. This time last year, we paid $196,041.45. Difference of $38,000 more this time last year. There were a few things that we had last year that we didn't this year. We've completed an upgrade of $10,000 for lighting and sound in the high school auditorium. We also had a timing of our workers' compensation payments of $14,000, and there was some additional federal health reimbursements for $5,600. This year we did call your attention to a couple of items that you may have seen in your claims. The United Airlines, we did make a check for the FBLA trip for $5,573, and also to U.S. Space and Rocket, we paid $5,688 for the 2017 Space Camp trip. And those amounts, for the most part, will be reimbursed from those organizations. There will be some of that FBLA trip that we did cover, but for the most part, they're paying that. And then also we had this year an upgrade in our high school gymnasium for $3,388 for some final work we had done there. So. This particular month, we didn't have any, I guess it's appropriate that Joe Nance is here because we didn't have any debt service payments on our bonding projects this month. You know, sometimes we don't have those, and this is one of those months from Fund 400. Any particular questions, I'll be glad to address those. Otherwise, I would ask for your approval on the claims for the month of June.
There was one bill in there to Slam Dunk Sports Marketing.
Yes, that is the upgrade.
It was the best thing I've ever. It was the Tiger Eyes.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
that was outstanding. Put the Tiger Eyes, and at night you can see them on this side just as well as you can the inside.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Any questions, comments? I hear a motion to approve the claims as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, there are none. Item number 3, financial report.
Just bring you up to date on some of our hires that we've made for this coming year. We've had 28 contracts for new employees this school year. 14 of those are certified, 14 of those are classified. There are 4 remaining positions to be filled, and just to kind of keep you up to date, these are not new hires. There are 5 of these positions that are new hires due to special education numbers have increased. One of those is a speech pathologist, language pathologist, and then we had a special ed assistant and 2 special ed teachers, as well as we've added 1 additional cook and baker based on the numbers that we have. Our federal grant funding for next year, it's not here yet as we anticipated. There is and expectation of a decrease of about $84,000. Again, this time around in our federal programs, that'd be like Title I and Title II. We have been able to shore up those expenditures, and we have a plan to address those. So we should be fine, and hopefully we'll get a handle on the federal money soon, and that it'll stop decreasing hopefully. Great news to share with you on the delinquent tax sale took place on May the 19th, but the great news is in that particular area, we only had 24 properties that we needed to file paperwork on. We did all the appropriate filings that we needed to do. So here's the amazing part. We're doing just great work with our folks in the tax office and with Ms. Rogers' leadership. We only have $65,000 that's out there, that's outstanding, which is kind of unheard of. 48,000 is one person. So if we can get lucky enough to collect that, we're going to be in good shape. So we've gone back over the past years. You can reach back into so many years back. We've been able to go back to 11 years. In 11 years, we only have 184,000 that's outstanding. So we made some great progress there in that area. So there's a total in those 11 years of 205 actual bills that are outstanding. That's out of 75,000 tax bills.
Wow.
So we say not congratulations, but we say good work to our tax office. But we also say thank you to our public for supporting their local schools. And then the final item I have for a treasurer's report on our bus garage relocation. To date, we've spent $754,000 for the services that we're moving along very well out there, and hopefully will be as planned with the exception of the major change order, which we'll talk about a little bit later. Everything is on schedule to be finished up in the month of July as planned. So we will keep 30% of that until all change orders, not change orders, but until all the, what do you call it when you do the list of things that need to be, punch list. Thank you, sir. The punch list, and once everything is completed, then we will make the final payment. So that's all I have on the treasurer's report today. No approval.
Okay, item number 4, superintendent's report.
In your packet, you have some summer activities. Be sure and look at those, and if there's anything that you would choose to be a part of, be sure that you are aware of those. We have with us today some folks that we're very excited to have come present our Bardstown Elementary stage. If you've been over there to the Bardstown Elementary School, in that gym area, there is a stage there that most people have forgotten about. And there's a couple reasons that they have. There's, first of all, we're short on storage. We're short on space. It's become a storage area. It's been converted many times from storage, has been kept on one side. We've used it for therapy in other areas. We may have even had a class or two up there from time to time. About 15 years ago, there was a necessity to put a fresh air exchange system into the elementary to make it a healthier building. That consumed some of the space overhead. There was really no back curtain, or it's called a teaser curtain in the drama business, that was there. So it really made the stage almost hardly usable. We did do a few events there, but you always had boxes, therapy equipment, everything was in the view of the actual performance. So recently, an angel from the world of no clutter came about. She's also known as her business, The Neat Freak, Miss Amy Keeling Walton. She approached Mr. Bolin and spoke with him about a way that she thought we could improve that area. And I say that kind of jokingly about the angel piece, but if you look at it today, and you're going to get to see some photographs, and hopefully you'll be able to tell, but I encourage you to stop by there sometime and just take a look at it. The work that she has done is absolutely remarkable. We've taken an unused space and turned it into a very wonderful, usable space for our students now. So we will have another place for performances and things of of that nature. So Mr. Bowling is here today, and I think Amy's going to come up with him, and I want him to just tell us a little bit about this, the great work that she has done. By the way,
We've got a computer update going on over here that
Oh, okay.
Tim is working on, but
okay.
we're going to go ahead and talk a little bit about what was done. And I'm so thankful to have Amy approach me about the stage. And one of the things that she said to me when we first met was, you know, there's really only 2 stages on our campus. That's it. We've got one that was just remodeled and is class, you know, is top notch. But she had a vision for the elementary stage. She really felt like it could be a very usable, professional working stage. And the stage area over the past has been an area where we stored things. It really didn't look very good. When we took the curtains up, and again, you'll see some pictures here shortly, I hope. There was boxes of HVAC filters. There were desks that were broken possibly and needed to be discarded, and there's a lot of things on the stage, and all that was visible because there was not a curtain behind the main curtain. So when you open the curtain up, it didn't look very good back there. When we had our talent show, the pictures just didn't look good, and the lighting wasn't good, and there was multiple issues. So the first thing, you know, Amy and I talked, and she said, well, the first thing we got to do is clean up back there a little bit. And so we made a plan, and she came to me with a spreadsheet of items that were on the stage. She said, first thing we're going to do is make an inventory of what's there. Because I didn't know how she operates, but she brought me a 5-page spreadsheet full of items on the stage, and they were categorized. And then from there, we worked together to figure out where each of those things could go. And we found some things needed to be discarded. We found storage areas for other things, and so we cleaned the stage up first so that there could be work done. And then Amy, just in real short order here, she basically became a general contractor of sorts. There was some work to be done up there with some cables that needed a construction person really to do that. She organized all that. She organized a team of parent volunteers to do some sewing. She was able to locate some curtains from the Performing Arts Center in Hardin County that they gave us for free. They needed some modification and alteration. And I'm estimating, I haven't talked to Amy about this, but I'm estimating that she spent 60 or 80 hours of her own time on this project. I'm sure she didn't keep track because she just wouldn't, but it was a lot of her time that she basically donated to the school to make this. It was something that she cared about, and it really came together. I'm going to let you just say a few things about what you did.
The main thing I told him was it was just under-realized potential in that space. And I just hate to see that in what I do professionally, and just, I'm an occupational therapist too, and so when I used to work with kids, it was the same thing. You just try to find the potential and you maximize that. And so through Mr. Rowland making some decisions with his spreadsheet, and then just finding support through other areas, we were able to acquire the curtains and organize the other services that needed to happen. I told him I could do many things, but installing cables was not one of them that I was willing to take on. And also having it be a combination storage, performance, and it still is a therapy space. So the curtains had to be able to be retracted, per se, so that the therapists, as being a therapist, I didn't want to discourage the therapists in their work. So it can completely be converted so they have full space. The curtains can also be pulled back for the cheerleading team has to pull their mats down about 8 or 10 mats, I think, every time they practice. And so those have, we didn't want them to have to go around the curtains because it would not be good for both parties. And also we hung some signs for the teachers if they wish to. They can go up there and educate their students on like the names of the curtains, the names of the parts of the stage, and it can be perhaps, I don't know enough, I didn't go into the, whatever that word is that they have to teach, standards, things.
The arts and humanities.
Yes, those things. I just taught what I thought, what I would teach if I were teaching people about when I had to teach everybody.
And the other thing
curtains and stuff,
that Amy did was that she sought out a professional stage guy, and we purchased some professional stage lights that are portable. They can be put up on, and you'll see them here in a minute. We're close, I think. So we've got a stage lighting set on each side of the stage, so we can actually put lights right on the stage where they belong, rather than trying to use lights from the gym. And so now we can dim the lights in the gym, and we've got, it looks like a real professional stage. And I hope that you can come by and see it sometime if you're up that way. But I'm just so grateful for the work that Amy did. I would not have been able to pull that off. So thank you so much. And Amy, from the elementary school, we have a small token of our appreciation, and we're so grateful to have your parents like you to come and help us with things like this. Tim, how are we looking back here?
I don't know that we're going to get to see the photographs, but I encourage you to stop by and trust me, just take my word for it. It is a major overhaul.
Yeah,
Okay.
And it,
because you can't see it unless
Okay,
it's all
Mike
separate, but-
has a link on the Google Drive.
If you all, on your iPads, if you'll open your web browser and go to BCS.
This is going to be a great working example of Mike Paul.
I did that, I was over there.
Is that Safari?
Okay.
Any web browser,
Wait a minute.
bcsedtech.com/bowling. bcsedtech.com/bowling. And if the technology gods have smiled down upon me, you should get directed to just.
So this is kind of a make or break for you, Mike. I don't know how it's just.
Well, I hate to, some of us are a little slow.
Sure.
BCS,
EdTech, EDTECH
Boom.
.com.
No results found. Says BCS Instructional Technology, am I in the right spot?
bcsedtech.com /
Oh, I did backslash.
Yeah, /
forward slash.
Bowling?
What comes after forward slash?
Bowling.
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 Is that it?
Walk right in at the table.
Is that it?
I failed.
Go.
There it is.
It's like a quiz, we failed.
Amy, I understand one thing from Mr. Holzclaw, that your spreadsheet, you went through it and said, if this is broken, it's gone. And you wasn't that you could actually look at it because it was on the spreadsheet and everything else was in there. And if it was
The
broken, it
emotional
was
attachment
gone.
was,
No emotional attachment.
I have some experience in that area, how people deal with their possessions, so. And it was just a time.
Sign in to continue the slides.
Is it okay if can I just?
yeah, let's just do that, and then we can.
Couple of,
I'd like to get home at 5
you
o'clock.
can see the lighting on the performers.
And you do
curtains behind
homes?
there.
Yeah,
Oh,
sure.
yeah, we need to make that commercial. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, we give her that.
Oh, my
That's for the talent show, and you can see the lighting.
Oh, my
right
gosh, that
there.
looks fantastic.
It looks just
'Cause
phenomenal.
I know what it looked like before.
You've
That
seen
looks
it,
great.
Robbie.
I've seen it when it was full of
That
death.
thing is going to finish updating at some point.
That's
I
okay.
guess.
That's wonderful.
But,
Nice work.
thank you all
Thank you.
so much.
Amy, before you get away, we want to say thank you for all of your time that you spent on that. And she was not compensated. She did this. She had the initiative to do it, and she did it, and she got things done. And as Paul said, she was like a contractor getting people in there to make things happen and using her connections in Hardin
Wow.
County. So we're so grateful. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Next, we have with us our new instructional technology coordinator. I'm just very excited to share with you that we have made a selection for the ITC. As you know, that you approved that position in April. The committee selected Mr. Michael Paul. He teaches math and science at Bardstown Middle School. And just a reminder of the arrangement that we had on how this would work is that he will continue to be the math and science teacher at Bardstown Middle. We're going to be paying during his planning time. He will be available for teachers After school, he'll be available for teachers. Before school, he'll be available for teachers. During the summer, he'll be available for teachers. And his main purpose is to assist every teacher in this district in helping students use technology to increase student achievement. That's the goal. That's what this is all about. He's been working very hard to put together his plan on how he's going to be working with our teachers. You can imagine there's one of him in a limited amount of time, and he's going to be assisting through multiple ways, and he's going to share some of that with us today. So he's getting trained, he's working on things. He already is highly trained. Remember what our goal is. I just want to remind you all is that we want him to work himself into a full-time position here to where we can't do without him. As of right now, he's, if you will, somewhat of a part-time position. Ms. Shrewsbury and I were talking just a moment ago about a business here in town that's increasing its hours and doing business differently. And that's what we have to do as a school district. We have to meet our children where they are. This will not take the place of good teaching. What it does, though, it helps us use the tool of technology to increase student achievement. So that's what we're after today. So, Mr. Paul, I know that you're digging over there, getting things together. For some reason or another, we haven't had a technology letdown here for 5 years, and today it decides to go down. So,
Murphy's Law of technology. It's work the most, that's when it kind of lets you down sometimes.
and if it would be beneficial, we could probably move on and come back to this.
I believe he has it, sir.
He has it? Thank you.
We're good. Just waiting. Projector light up there. While we're waiting on that, I'll go ahead and get started. My name is Mike Paul, as Mr. Paul told you. I do teach 6th and 7th grade mathematics over at the middle school. And I've had the pleasure of working there for 2 years. I'm starting my 3rd year there, and have worked with the school leadership team to do some pretty amazing things with technology integration with the school. To give you a little background on some of the things that my experience, I'm very active in social media in the educational technology space. I have a little over 12,000 followers on Twitter right now. My blog posts have been visited by well over 100,000 people all around the world. They've read stuff that I've written. I am a Google certified innovator, which recognizes teachers and administrators in education who do some pretty awesome things, and I'm very honored to be one of now 6 in the state of Kentucky. We've added a few since I was accepted, so all very, very awesome people who do lots of great things for education. So that's enough about me. Let's move on to what's really important. So when I started talking with Mr. Beck and Ms. Spalding and Mr. Holzclaw about what this job would entail, one of the things we talked about back at the Innovator Academy when I went was a methodology called design thinking. Design thinking is something that's been used by Apple, by Google, by IBM, and some of the other biggest corporations in the world to create new products and solve problems. Design thinking it's a human-centered methodology. It's very collaborative. It's also very optimistic, and it's very experimental. It's about creating things and believing that we can make a difference, having an intentional process in order to get to new relevant solutions that create positive impact. And the way we do that, we started the design thinking process by we come up with a question. We simply ask, how might we accomplish something? For Apple, it was, how might we take over the world with a phone that fits inside in your pocket, which they've done really well with. But for us, and for me, as instructional technology coordinator, it's about finding the right questions to ask the teachers and administrators in our buildings to inspire the next moonshot innovations for our students. We've gone dark. There we go. So John Kennedy, who we all know, said, "We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, Not because they're easy, but because they're hard. Because that goal will serve to organize and measure the best of our energies and skills. Because that challenge is one that we're willing to accept, one we are unwilling to postpone, and one we intend to win. And what he was really saying there was, we're going to go to the moon, even though we really don't have any idea how we're going to get there just yet. We're going to integrate technology in our schools in meaningful ways for our teachers and for our students to increase student achievement and innovation in our classrooms, even though right now we're not quite sure exactly what the details of that are going to be. But that's what this design thinking process is going to do as we go through a 30, 60, 90-day pathway. During that first 30 days, and I found this quote from Winston Churchill about courage, and that it's what you have to do to stand up and speak, but you also have to have courage to listen. During that first 30 days, I'm going to be doing a lot of listening with our teachers and administrators in the buildings. Asking a lot of questions like, what are your students doing? What do you want them to do? How can we use what we have in the building to make this more accessible to students, to get technology in their hands, to get them using technology so that we see student growth, we increase student achievement. And the focal point of that is going to be asking what the teachers want their students to do rather than saying, well, here's what you should do, and here's this really cool thing, and you should go ahead and use this, without having some intention behind it. Technology is great, and it's wonderful, but sometimes it doesn't work, as we've had a nice demonstration of that today. But it's also, it's just a tool. As Mr. Holsclaw said, technology does not replace good teaching. It does not at all, it never will. But it can enhance teaching, and it can certainly empower students to be more innovative and to reach further than they thought they could. So that's what will happen during the first 30 days. During that first 60 days is the experimentation phase of design thinking. Tim Brown, who is one of the creators of the design thinking methodology, said the faster we make our ideas tangible, the sooner we'll be able to evaluate them, refine them, and zero in on the best solution. That experimentation phase is where we come up with, here's what we want. Here's what we want our students to do. Here are the things we have to do it. Now, how do we put this stuff into action? How do we use the technologies that we already have? How do we track it? How do we collect data to see how effective it is? What are the processes we're going to put in place? In this experimentation phase, we create a prototype of something for teachers and students to use. We collect feedback all the time, constantly revising, reviewing, seeing how students are using it, what they're achieving, what they're doing, and how it's impacting their learning. The goal is to build what we call a minimum viable product, something that we can get out quickly and start seeing how it's going to impact students and teachers. And the product can be anything. It can be a spreadsheet. It can be an integration of several technologies and how they work together for students. That's really what we're working on here in this experimentation phase. Now, all of the things we'll design will be guided by the framework set out by ISTE, which is the International Society for Technology and Education. They have standards for teachers for what they're doing, but more importantly, we also have standards for students. And this is really what we want to see when we're using technology in the classroom, integrating it right along with the content standards for whatever they may be doing in math, science, ELA, arts and humanities, whatever it may be. We want our students to be empowered learners. We want them to be digital citizens. We want them to become knowledge constructors, where they can find different pieces of information and put it together themselves to make something new. We want them to be innovative designers and computational thinkers. We want them to be creative communicators and global collaborators, because we do live in the 21st century, and they have all kinds of ways to get connected with the world, and we're really preparing them not for 21st century jobs, but for 22nd century jobs. We're already in the 21st century. If we're thinking we're going to prepare for 21st century, we're already behind. We have to get prepared for the future. Then the final phase of the design thinking process is evolution. It's not really a final phase. Elon Musk said it's very important to have a feedback loop where you're constantly thinking about what you've done and how you can do it better. So even though this is the final phase, we look back and we see, what did we get right, what did we get wrong, how do we make it better? And even though it's final, it's really not final because it's just the beginning of the process all over again, where we go back and we get feedback from students and teachers and administrators. How is this working? How can we make it better? Do we need to change tools? Is this tool working? Is it great? Fine. How do we make it better? And it's all about improving student achievement across the board. It's not just about making teachers' lives easier, although technology will certainly do that. But it's about making it better for students. And if we can increase communication between staff, if we can break down the silos between teachers in their rooms and working more together in their professional learning communities, collaborating, sharing tools, it all works together for our students and their best interests. And that's what we're going to endeavor to do during this first 90 days, starting during the school year. And then we'll just keep going from there. Like John Kennedy said, we're not quite sure how we're going to get it done yet, but we're going to get it done. And we'll have great things to celebrate here in the very near future. And if you have any questions, I'm more than happy to try to answer them.
Where are you gonna find time to do all this plus teach? That's a bunch of steps.
Well, part of, and people ask me that a lot, part of the moonshot thinking philosophy is that 10 times is better than 10%. And sometimes it's easier to, rather than just try to make something incremental, that we start over from the beginning and just go all out. And, it's a worthy cause. It is a lot of time and it's a lot of dedication and it's a lot of effort, but it's for the kids and they're worth it all. I spent 20 years of my life trying to figure out exactly what I was supposed to do, and this is it. And this is not just a job for me. It really is a calling. And when I interviewed for the position, I kind of boldly made the statement, I'm like Paul, and this is the job I was born to do. Because I live, breathe, and eat this technology stuff. It's what consumes my every waking minute, how to use it and how to make it better. But it is a lot of work, and it's a lot of dedication. But we're well able and up to the task to get it done.
Welcome aboard.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you all
Thank
very
you,
much.
Paul. Appreciate it. And that, folks, concludes the superintendent's report today.
Is there anyone here that would like to address the board? If there is, please go to the podium and state your name and purpose. Being none, we'll move right along. Presentation, facility planning, Joe Nance and Ross Sinclair and Associates.
Just to to give you a little bit of an introduction here, we have been discussing the possibility of building a new school for some time now, second and third grade facility center out on the Temple property. Today is the first of a series of presentations to address things that we're going to be dealing with in the coming year, 2 years, whatever our timetable ends up being. So we're very grateful to have Joe Nance with Ross Sinclair with us today to, if you will, just review. Some of you all have had some experience in this area. Some of us have not. It's always good to learn how the process works, and that's kind of what today is all about. How does this bonding money process work for a new construction project? So Joe's been very gracious in being here today. I'm so thankful for you taking time out of your schedule to come and share with us, and it's all yours. Thank you, Joe.
Thank you, Mr. Oswald, members of the board. It's a pleasure to be here. Hopefully everybody has a packet in front of them. And normally whenever I show up, we're talking about a specific project that we're going to finance. So what I want to do maybe today is concentrate a little bit more on the process more than just, hey, we're going to sell bonds today to finance this project. So if you will, on the right-hand side, I want you to take out what's labeled Bardstown Independent School District Plan of Financing. And we're going to start with that, and then we'll kind of be going to the left-hand page also. But if you will take my standard plan of financing and flip to page 1. And this is something that I normally don't include in my packet when we talk about financing a project. But I think it's important to kind of go through this so we kind of go back to basics of hey, number one, what is bonding potential? Well, bonding potential is what's our ability to borrow. So, I always kind of compare it to our personal circumstances. If you want to build a new house, you go to the bank and you take out a mortgage. Well, for school financing, we determine how much can we borrow, and then we issue bonds. So we talk about bonding potential. How do we get to bonding potential? So on this first page, this page identifies all of the restricted funds that are available to some school districts. And I'm going to kind of start going down the list of what we have available. So the first line that you look going down, it's called the Local Nickel Building Fund. Every school district in the state has the Local Nickel Building Fund. And simply, what that means is whenever you bring in your tax dollars every year, a nickel's worth of that tax is required by law to be set aside into a separate building fund. So every year, whatever that nickel generates, every year has to be set aside. Those funds can be used to make bond payments, or if you don't have bond payments to make, that's cash that you build up. Now, the second line that you'll notice is growth nickels. Fortunately, we have those here in Bardstown. I guess really it's how time flies when you're having fun. I think those growth nickels go back to almost 20 years ago now. That at one point the General Assembly said school districts that are growing both in assessments and in student population and met a certain criteria had the ability to put on 2 additional nickels, additional tax for building purposes. We have 2 growth nickels. So right now, every year when Tracy brings in the local tax revenue and we set part of it aside, we put the equivalent of 15 cents into the building fund. But it's all called nickels. So we've got our base nickel and our 2 growth nickels for the total of 15 cents that we put aside in the building fund. So these are local tax dollars that come in every year. Yes, sir.
Once you get the nickel, can you lose the nickel?
No,
You always-
the nickel stays on
Okay.
for eternity. Yeah. Once you get it, it's there. Now, I'm not going to go into much detail, but if you'll notice, the next 3 lines are 3 other kinds of nickels that are available to some districts. We don't have those here in Bardstown. Some districts actually go to the voters for an additional nickel tax. We've not had to do that here in Bardstown. It's not available now, but 2 other nickels were the Equalized Facility Funding Nickel and Category 5 nickel that allowed some districts to put that on that met certain criteria. We never met that criteria here in Bardstown. But of the potential 5 nickels that are out there, we have 3 of them, the base nickel and the 2 growth nickels. So again, comes out of our local tax dollars. Now, the next fund that we have available is our capital outlay funds. And these dollars come into our local budget, but they're part of the SEEK funding formula. So it's a real simple funding formula for capital outlay funds. You take your ADA, or your average daily attendance, multiply that by $100, and that's what we receive in capital outlay funds. And then the second line, you'll notice, we can use 80% of those funds for bonding purposes. So the one thing I will point out is on capital outlay funds, if you're gaining students, that goes up. If you're losing students, that goes down. And really, that's the main reason that the Department of Education requires that we only use 80% of those funds, because if you do happen to lose some students for a couple of years, we've got that buffer zone to make that up. So we always have to be conservative. Now, let me back up, though, to one thing. Since I mentioned on capital outlay funds, they could go down if you lose students. However, back up on the 3 nickels we have. Those 3 nickels are based on each current year total property assessments. So every year, if your assessments go up, those nickels go up. So here in Bardstown, you're going to see in a minute, those 3 nickels represent, I think, almost 70% of the restricted funds that we have available. So as far as going forward with future bonding potential, we're more driven by, do our property assessments go up more than does our student population go up and down. So we keep that in mind. From a student population standpoint, it's not really as important. From a building funding standpoint, it's more about your property assessments from year to year. So far we've talked about our nickels and our capital outlay funds. And then the next fund that we have that comes into our budget through the SEEK funding formula is what's called the Facility Support Program of Kentucky. And you'll hear me say FSPK for short. And what this is, that's the equalization program that if you put your nickel up, the state matches it to a certain point. And to give you an example, if you were the perfectly average district in the state, that if they look at the number of students you have compared to your property values, the state FSPK match would equal your nickel. Well, what you're going to see in a minute when we see the actual numbers, here in Bardstown, and it's true for independent schools, our overall property values are higher than the state average compared to the number of students we get. So our state match is a little bit less than what we put up locally. So it's all a formula to bring everybody up to that equal level. Now, on the FSPK program, here's the good news. The fact that we were able to put on the 2 growth nickels, we receive a second state match because of that. So there was an incentive back when we were able to put on those 2 growth nickels. The state said, if you're willing to do this locally, we will provide an additional state match for one of those nickels. So we get 2 state FSPK matches, one for our base nickel that everybody gets, and another for our second growth nickel that only some districts have. Then the other thing that I'll point out, and we don't recommend this, and not many districts do, but some districts have a more need than they have funds available, and they actually dedicate some of their general fund tax dollars to building fund. We never recommend that unless it's an absolute necessity, and we've never done that here in Bardstown. So anything that's available for general fund, we've always used it for general fund purposes. Now, the next fund that I show, and the reason we show this last is because these funds never come into your budget. There's the School Facility Construction Commission, and you're going to hear me say SFCC for short, is a separate commission that receives appropriations every 2 years from the General Assembly, and then they then make offers of assistance to all school districts based on your facility needs. So, you now have a facility plan in place and you're working on a new one. And at the end of the day, when you do a new facility plan, it tells you the total need in your district. So every 2 years when the General Assembly meets, they compare your need to every other school district across the state, and then you get an offer of assistance based on your percentage of the state total. So every 2 years, we get new SFCC offers that go towards new bonding potential. So here's the formula. It's pretty simple. Whenever we borrow money or issue bonds, we do it for 20 years. And again, just like your personal circumstances, sometimes you might take out a 15-year mortgage, a 20-year mortgage, or a 30-year mortgage. We take out 20-year mortgages. We issue debt for 20 years. Where I have it highlighted, I add up the restricted funds that we have available. You subtract what you currently owe, and what's left over is to say, how much more can we borrow with the balance of the restricted funds? Any questions? Now, before you go to page 2, go back to your folder and pull out the handout on the left-hand side, which is your official final SEEK calculation for this year. And I want to kind of show you how this matches up to these funds. So if you look at the left-hand side of the page, the bottom box, and you'll notice where it says under local, it's got your FSPK, original growth, and equalized growth. Those are your 3 nickels. So each one of those 3 nickels generates $588,600. Then if you go down to the additional FSPK, you'll notice where it says state in that bottom left-hand box, we receive $295,673 in each one of our state FSPK matches. And then if you go to the middle section, all the way down the second line from the bottom, shows your capital outlay funds. and we use 80% of those funds for bond payments. So all of the numbers we use for bonding potential come directly from your SEEK page, which is, updated every year when you set your new tax rates. I wanted you to kind of see, where the numbers come from. It's a very standard calculation that we know every year how much are our nickels, how much is our capital outlay, and what's our state FSPK match. Now, the other thing I'll point out is under the state section, the 295,673, there's no guarantee, but typically every 2 years when we get a new state budget, that formula increases and that amount goes up. And so later on in the presentation, you're going to see where I project future bonding potential, and the future bonding potential will be based on an increase in that state match, any growth in your 3 nickels, plus a new SFCC offer. Those aren't guaranteed, but we can make reasonable projections going forward. If we look at what's happened in the past, make reasonable projections, that's how we can project not only what do you have today, but how much more will we have a year from now or 3 years from now. So I just want to kind of point those couple things out. Now let's go back to my main presentation and flip over to page 2. So we just kind of identified the process. So now we're going to start looking at real numbers here for us in Bardstown. So on page 2 at the bottom, if you go all the way at the top, I've got my columns labeled A through N. Each column is a bond issue that we're currently paying on. So if you go all the way over to the right-hand side, column N, the current year that we're in that ends June 30th, this year we owe $1,965,928. And if you go to the second line, that goes up slightly next year because we just completed the new bond issue for our bus garage that our payments start next year. So our payments do go up a little bit next year. So you'll notice starting next year, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years that they're pretty level payments. And then after we start paying off some of our old bond issue, our payments go down accordingly. So really for the next 7 years, we owe a little bit over $2 million in bond payments. One thing I'll point out to you, if you go over to column C is a 2008 issue that we have outstanding. And you'll notice it's not really a very big issue. Our payments aren't very much, but I do want to point out we are monitoring that bond issue for the possibility of refinancing. Right now, we don't meet the requirements that the state has before you do a refinancing, but that's one that we are monitoring, that if rates stay about the same and the closer we get to the call date, we may very well be able to refinance. But unfortunately, it's one of our smaller issues. The savings wouldn't be that great, but if we can save something, we will when the time comes. Just wanted to point that out to you. So this is where we stand today. Now, flip over to page 3. And page 3 is where I take our numbers from our SEEK page and put it in a spreadsheet form so that we can start looking at over a 20-year period how much can we bond. So again, I've got my columns labeled A through M at the top. Starting with column A is fiscal year ending, and we start with the current fiscal year, and we go all the way down to 20 years, because when we issue bonds, it's for 20 years. And you'll notice in columns B, C, and D, these are our 3 nickels that match up exactly with the numbers that came from our SEEK page. Column E is our 80% of our capital outlay funds. Then columns E, F, and G are our 2 state FSPK matches. So in column H, I simply add B through G. So based on current data, this year, we have $2,537,840 that could be used for bond payments. The next column over, column I simply subtract what we have in current bond payments. So in column J is what's left over. So column J is you take the total in H, subtract I, and J is what we have left over to project new bond payments. So let me stop there for a second though. So what that shows us is this year we had $571,912 in cash that we didn't use for bond payments. And I think what if the board will recall over the last several years, typically you all have been approving capital funds requests. that we take that leftover cash to do some kind of general projects over the summer. So if we don't do anything for the next several years, every year that we get to June 30th, we've got another $500,000 of cash that we have available to do something. So what I want to point out is, at some point, whenever we get ready to do our major project, instead of having that $500,000 a year left over, we will be dedicating that additional funding for new bond payments to pay for a new school. So every year that we don't do a project, we're generating excess cash of a little over $500,000 a year. However, I'm going to show you in a minute that if we did want to do another major project and dedicate that cash, how much could we afford to borrow with that? Now, the next two columns are K and L, and these are our SFCC offers of assistance that we haven't used in the past. So whenever we get an offer from the state, from the SFCC, you've got 8 years to use it or lose it. So what that tells us is we can build up to 4 offers and save it to go towards a major project. So now we've got 2 offers on the table. The 2012 offer was $14,862. The 2014 offer was $12,072, and that's for 20 years, that whenever we get ready to sell bonds, the state will pay that directly on the bond issue. So you'll pay your part out of your local budget, the SFCC pays their part directly. Now, let's just stop for a second and just look at what we've got. Our 2 SFCC offers, compared to all the other funds, are relatively small. So we're an independent district. We don't have as many buildings as some of the larger county districts. So it makes sense that through the SFCC, the bigger districts with more buildings, they get more because they have more need. Then if you go over back to what's in our budget, like I mentioned earlier, the 3 big numbers are our 3 nickels. We generate $588,000 for each nickel. And then we get from the state, through the SEEK funding formula, our capital outlay funds and our 2 FSPK funds. So what I really want to kind of drive home is, we really are driven by property assessments here in Bardstown. So as our bonding potential goes, it's because of our property assessments. And if we grow at a 2 to 4% clip, our bonding potential continues to grow each year. And on the other hand, the student-driven part of it, again, you can see is kind of a smaller portion, so it's not really that important. So as long as we continue to have reasonable property assessment growth, we're going to continue to have more and more bonding potential each year. Any questions on that page? Now let's start talking about real numbers. Flip over to page 4.
Just one thing on that. Your
Real numbers now?
Oh, yeah. Well, what does it do? These are real numbers, but what do these numbers get us in bonding potential?
Good. Just checking.
Yeah.
For a second.
Bad choice of words.
For example, for us, from 2018 to 2037 on this form, you're just using the same number over and over. Like,
Yes.
for instance, the local nickel could have actually increased,
Exactly.
and likely would.
And that's a good point, because whenever I tell you what your bonding potential is today, I'm assuming no growth in anything. So, and again, the Department of Education, they require that we take kind of a worst-case scenario. There's never going to be any new money, so that's all that we could bond today is what we know is available. You're going to see at the end of my presentation, when I make projections on future bonding, that would take into consideration reasonable growth in those numbers and new SFCC offers. Okay, so let's flip to page 4. And page 4 shows what an amortization schedule would look like with our ability to pay for it. So I want to first draw your attention to column C down at the bottom. As of today, we're projecting that you could borrow or bond $10,270,000. I'm very comfortable with that number. The interest rates that we're projecting are a little bit higher than what we could actually get today, but we all know that from the time we start planning a project to the time we actually would complete a project, it's going to be probably at least 12 months, if not more. So I want to make sure that I make reasonable projections in interest rates so that if they do go up a little over the next year, that I'm not going to come back and say, hey, interest rates went up, Now you can only bond 9.8. I'm very comfortable that that's a solid number that we'll be able to live with for definitely the next year. So what this page shows us is that if we take our current bond payments in column A, that's what we currently owe on our existing debt, and then we issue bonds for a $10.2 million. If you go over to column G, the SFCC will pay for $26,934 of bond payments each year from their part, those two SFCC offers, which would leave our payment, our local portion, of $508,261. And you'll notice that we stay about that $500,000 range, because if you recall back on the previous page, that's about what we had available. So I add those new payments in column H in with our existing payments on column A. So column I would be our new payments, what we currently owe plus the new payments on a $10 million project. Then I compare that in column J to what our total funds available are, which was the $2,537,000. So it leaves us column K. So here's the important thing on column K. There better not be a negative in that column, because if there is, we're spending more than our restricted funds available. However, you'll notice for the first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years, we would be using all of our restricted funds. That $500,000 we would have had available. And then after that, once we start paying off some of our other debt, we start opening back up for additional bonding potential. That's really a good picture to have as a district, because more times than not, if we're saving up for a major project, there won't be anything left for 20 years for a district, because they completely maximize their bonding potential. Fortunately, here in Bardstown, going back to 1991, we've always tried to say, look, we don't want to completely bond somebody out for the next 20 years, because we know there's going to be additional needs. And so it's good to have a stair step like that, that even in a worst case scenario, 7 years from now, there will be more funds available because we pay off some of our debt for some future projects. So this is really from a $10.2 million bond issue that we're showing that you have available. I'm very comfortable with that. This is a very conservative, reasonable amount to show for moving forward with the project. And after 7 years, even in a worst case, if we never got any additional funding, we could still leave somebody else the ability to do a project down the road. So that's where we're at as of today. Now flip to page 5. And here's our summary. And sometimes when I come down to the board, and we've done this before, I'll say, let's skip the first 4 pages and here's your bottom line. But I think today we wanted to make sure we were comfortable how we got to this point. So as of today, when we just went through the process on your bonding potential, $9,885,000 is what we would pay for out of our local restricted dollars. Those 2 small SFCC offers would pay for $385,000, which comes up with the $10,270,000. Now, outside the box is where we make reasonable projections that whenever, every 2 years, when we get a new state budget, we'll get a new SFCC offer. We're going to get an increase in our state FSPK match. And then also, we can then project our property assessment increases. And it's reasonable to assume that every 2 years, in 7-18, after we get a new budget, we should have about another $3 million available. And then 2 years after that, we would project about $4 million. Now again, I think as a board standpoint, there's no guarantee of that additional funding, but it's reasonable to expect that we're going to have that if they've done what they've done in the past. And just, and if you think about it too, I know times are kind of tough now. We're hearing about the revenues weren't quite as good as they were, but just go back to 2008, when we had our financial crisis, and we had some really, really lean budgets. So, nobody has a crystal ball going out. I'm pretty darn comfortable that in July of 18, there's going to be another $3 million. So from a planning standpoint, I think it's reasonable to say, hey, we've got $13 million as we start our planning process. Nobody has a crystal ball, going on out, but again, it's reasonable to project as you kind of look through the process, that then 2 more years out, 3 years from now, there could easily be another $4 million available. Any questions?
What kind of percentage did you use for that inflationary growth?
Well, I've assumed about a 2% increase in your assessments, which is reasonable. So, we've had years that we've had 6%, but we've had years that weren't. So if I figure about a 2% growth in your property assessments and reasonable increases in your FSPK matches, that would get us to that $3 or $4 million. Now, one thing too that I kind of didn't hit on, but I think it's important to know too, is that when you set your property rates every year, whether you take the 4% or you don't, that really doesn't affect our bonding potential. Because, and here's what I want to point out. A nickel's a nickel. So whatever your property assessments are, and let's just throw it out too. For instance, if your property assessments grew 6% from one year to the next, those nickels will grow at 6%, but at the detriment of your general fund. So number one, you can only take a 4% increase if the board chooses to do that. And if your property assessments are growing more than 4%, those nickels grow more than 4%, but your overall local revenue can't. So if you're actually growing at a level of more than 4%, even if you take your 4%, you still lose a little bit to your building fund. But the point I want to make is that if you just took your compensating rate, you're actually going backwards because those nickels are going to grow, and you have to put in the equivalent of 15% or 15 cents into your building fund. And if you brought in just the same revenue as you did the previous year, then it has to come from somewhere, which means it comes out of your general fund into your building fund. And that's something that we don't talk about a lot, but it's kind of it's good to know in the back of your mind, exactly how that works. Those nickels, and if you grew at 10% in 1 year, those nickels would grow 10% because you have to put the equivalent of a nickel over into your building fund. So I just want to kind of leave you with that. Any questions? We'll say same process for everybody. That's one good thing about Kentucky, the Department of Education. A lot of times we think they have some crazy rules that we have to follow, and we kind of get disgusted with them, but when it comes to financing, it's good. We're conservative, and we look at financing for every school district the same, so that we don't get in a situation that the school district gets in trouble and gets in over their head. So we always do it conservative and make sure that we're looking to the future on other projects.
Any questions or comments? Joe, we thank you. You bring a great gift. You can explain very complex matters in a very simple form, and we're very grateful for your time today. So,
Pleasure to be here, and as always, I love doing meetings in Bardstown, so I'll invite you back anytime.
all right, we'll do that. Thank you for being here. Drive safe.
So our bonding potential this year,
13 million.
18.
Well, but if we started the project, it'll take 12 months. You'll look at it that way. Today, it would be 10. But if you're going to do a project today, you would be thinking about 13,270,000.
Determine whether we wait for here or possibly down.
Yeah.
So
this has been with prevailing wage dropping, we're in now. We had $4 million for the property out there we paid, plus garage up there. All right.
Okay, item 7, approval of the June 30th, 2017 payment of fiscal year 17 ending claims.
This, basically, we do this yearly, and we just need to be able to close out 2017. We can't do that to wait till the middle of July, so we're just asking you permission to go ahead and make those claims payments. We'll bring you all the detailed paperwork in July that you can review, but we're going to pay those before you approve them. Is simply what we're asking for approval of.
Do I hear a motion to pay the fiscal year 2017 ending claims by the end of June.
Make a motion to approve.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, there are none. Item number 8, approval of 2017-18 salary schedule.
You all will recall at the May 16th meeting, you approved a tentative budget for 2017-18, which included a 2% raise for employees, Bardstown City School employees. The salary schedule that you have in front of you today does include that 2% raise for all employees, plus a regular step increase that's based on the accrued experience that each employee has. Very pleased to bring this before you today to make this, if you will, this request a reality, I hope, for our staff. From an academic standpoint, student achievement in our district has increased dramatically over the past year, according to our state assessment results. As you know, we are a distinguished school district. There's no doubt that our employees deserve this increase, this raise. It only reinforces our commitment to hiring and retaining the highest quality staff that we can possibly get. And of course, our community and our students have come to expect that from us. I want you to know that after very careful consideration, we have monitored our cost. I feel very confident that making this recommendation to you is this salary increase. It's financially feasible to do, and we're not going to be sacrificing any existing programs, and we will certainly make our budget today and in future years as well. So with that being said, I respectfully request that you consider approval of this 2017-18 salary schedule.
Do I hear a motion to approve the 17-18 salary schedule?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, there are none. Item 9, approval fiscal year 2018 bond of depository.
Our bond depository, each year, according to KRS 160.570, we have to make this decision on who is going to be accounting for our money that we receive from the state. It says that the Board of Education shall appoint a bank, trust company, or a savings and loan association to serve as a depository. So today, that's basically what we're doing. We've had an excellent relationship with our depository for many years. I'd like to recommend to you that we remain with the Wilson Muir Bank and ask for your approval of this item.
I hear a motion to approve fiscal year Fidelity Bond and Wilson Muir Bank.
Yeah, just a bond depository.
Bond depository.
Yeah.
Make
Okay.
a motion to approve.
Second.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, there are none. Item 11, approval change order 1 and 2 bus garage relocation project.
Sir, could we go back to item 10, please?
We can do that.
Okay. Fidelity bonds, as you know that, again, each year KRS 160.560 requires that we have a fidelity bond on both our treasurer and our tax collection office. This year, it looks like that we will have a premium for each of these individuals. One is $268.75. The other is $395.02. This is up to $200,000 is the premium that we're having the bond for. Basically, it provides an assurance that these individuals that are handling this money will handle it in a proper way.
Make a motion to approve the Fidelity bonds.
Second.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, there are none. Item 11, change order 1 and 2.
Change order 1 and 2. If you'll go to page 122 in your iPad there. Start you on 123.
Yes, sir.
If you go to page 124, excuse me. Page 124, and we'll start there. We have 2 of these. The first one is a request to install a beam to remove 4 poles in the center of the facility there that would give us a much greater use of that space. The expense is $129,900. There are two ways that we will pay for this. It will not cost any additional money in the general fund whatsoever. What we will use is we'll use the contingency first. There's $48,000 contingency and some change that will go towards this. And then we'll use, as Joe was speaking earlier about, he's going to be looking at a bond that might have a lower interest rate in the future, and so we would refinance that. Well, we've done that twice fairly recently, and we were able to pay off those bonds earlier than we anticipated, which left existing money in the bonding account. We can't use that money for anything except something like this. So we're very fortunate to have that. We have $123,000 in that account. It can only be used towards a construction project. This is a great use of that money. So we'll take the contingency, subtract that out. You can see there is one fee on here that I have not been able to share with you that I'll share with you today. There's an additional $11,000, $366 from the architect, and that is an architectural fee, engineer fee that's a 5% that we are required to pay that I was aware of, but I failed to mention that to you at the time we had the discussion. So it is still a reasonable expense. There was a good amount of engineering that went into this project. This is, from my understanding from Michael Salzman, the BCD, one of the BCD owners, that this will be one of, if not the largest self-spanning space in Nelson County. So it'll certainly give us some opportunities that we wouldn't have with those poles in there, and I recommend that we move forward with that one. And if you'll turn on over to page 125. No, I have my page numbers really messed up here. 125. Go to page 126, please. 126. This will give you a breakdown of that actual expense there. You'll see one at the top, the base price. If you'll just ignore that one, that was taking out 3 poles. The second was taking out the 4 poles. We felt like if we were going to do it, we ought to just do the entire thing. And 3 poles didn't help us really. So this is the breakdown of the material, the labor, and the things that are required to do that. All right, I'm going to go ahead and on to, and we can come back to this if you want. If you have questions, feel free to stop me. But we're going to go on to page 128 now, and we'll talk about the second change order. Second change order is a number of those items. You'll see in your packet. Did that document get updated, Tracy?
No.
Okay. You'll see 72,000 remaining. The expense of the change orders are $8,594.93. Are you with me there? And then you'll see underneath that there's a contingency balance of a negative 72,240. That really should be a negative balance of 89,529.93. Don't be concerned about the negative balance. Remember, we have 123,000 in the unused bonding funds that we're going to be able to use for that. Okay. With that being said, that'd be 128. Turn on over to 129, please. And we'll just run through these very quickly. There are 7 of these change orders. The first one is in order to get the air compressors outside of the bus garage, basically for noise if nothing else. There's a compressor shed being built on the back side of the building. There was originally planned for a 3-phase power there, but it appears that they needed a single phase. So there was a change with the miscommunication with architects, builders, whatever, on the compressor we were using. So there is a change there for $320.82. On item 2, there was a change. One thing we discovered when we started looking at this, there were a number of sewer line additions, changes, rerouting. The as-built plans that we started with were not even close to what it actually was. And it just had to do with 2 or 3 alterations over the years that no one kept up with. We have discovered where those lines are now. They couldn't have possibly known that what appeared to be the simple place for the sewer line wasn't there. When it went to connect into it, they had to relocate and go a greater distance. That's a $10,892 change order. In item 3, those are costing us in item 3. Smile on this one, please, if you will, because there was some work that they found that wasn't unnecessary to perform, and so we received a $7,990 credit. So that was good news. I'm over on 28 now. 129 now. 130. Thank you. Thank you, Tracy. Item 4, we had some work to support the exterior brick, which basically amounts to a foundation that did not get included for whatever reason. It was a $5,887 expenditure. We were able to, because we were a little, quite frankly, just a little sore over someone not seeing that the brick needed a foundation. So they worked with us, and they were able to reduce that to $4,303.30. So we did get some revised pricing on that. And then these last 2 could actually be done together. They are a fire-rated access panel into the fire sprinkler system, and there was one for $283 and one for $785.41. So all in all, that comes to $8,594.93. So, as I said, we have the money in the plan. I will say, as a board member, you might have some concern about at least one of those change orders, maybe 2. But I think all in all, these folks have done a wonderful job. And if this is really all we have to change an oversight on a project that big, I think that it's very acceptable in my opinion. So. I will turn this back over to the chair if you have any specific questions, but just so you know, you are approving a $129,900 change order on a beam and an $8,594.93 change order on miscellaneous items that needed to be taken care of.
Any discussion, questions? Motion to approve item 11, approve change orders 1 and 2, bus garage and miscellaneous items.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, there are none. Item number 12, approval 2017 to 2022 district strategic plan.
We've been working on this strategic plan for a while, back in February, back in March. We met with Carrie McCarty. She gave us some direction on some things that we were going to work on. Just for your information, we've had many meetings as an administrative staff since the day that we met in the working meeting with the board. We have completed the plan. We're here today. There are actually 2 plans. You have at your place a paper copy, looks like this. That is our general copy. Then we have what we call more of a working document. It's about 25 pages roughly. I think there's a link in your iPad that will take you, if there is, Tracy's nodding her head, there is a link that will take you to the longer version of this with more details in it. But we have with us today Ms. Michelle Spalding, Mr. Tim Beck, our CIA folks that are here to present our final strategic plan.
Okay, so the plan that you have before you, it continues with our tradition of educating the whole child and providing opportunities for all students. And we feel that this plan will help us prioritize our needs and enhance the learning for every student, so we can kind of focus on what we need to focus on. So when we started this plan, we kept in mind our district mission, vision, and values. And our core values were excellence, innovation, and diversity. So that's where we started, and our whole plan revolves around our mission, vision, and values. And Tim is going to talk to you about some of the objectives and goals that are in our plan.
One of the questions that you had when we were, I think Mr. Roby actually had the question, was why do we need this? And I think one of the things that we discovered why we need this was that we looked through each individual department, and we found that while each individual department had goals, we weren't always unified in those goals. And so one of the things that this process did was it brought all the departments together so that we now have a unified goal from each department all flowing into one another. I won't go through, and you have both a hard copy of this. We're calling this sort of our general brochure document. We also have an internal document where we're documenting our conversations that we're having, the progress that we're making on each of the goals, what we need to change, what's working and what's not working. And what we have right now is version 1.0 of a 3-year plan. We're going to keep this always 3 years out. So next year will be year 1 of a 3-year plan, and we'll make adjustments accordingly. So basically what it breaks down into, without going through and reading you goal by goal by goal, it breaks into 4 areas. And they are Area 1, which is the CIA group in our department, and it's around increased student achievement. And there's Area 2, which is around serving the whole child and student advocacy, and that goes to the SBDMs and the school groups. And then there's Mr. Downs' group with HR, with recruiting and maintaining the best teachers. And then there's the strategic plan, which goes to Mr. Todd's group with maintenance and the DPP, meeting the objectives outlined in the facilities plans. And each of those have 1-year and 3-year goals, and we'll be adjusting those 1-year goals accordingly with them. And then other than that, we have a working document that we're going to keep working on for the next 3 years on that. Are there any questions about the strategic plan?
No, you've been involved in this process, you've kind of seen the document, but are there any questions that we can address for you?
The only question I have is, where does the assessment piece come in, as in assessing how we did on the objective?
Well, the assessment piece is, we have a 1-year goal for each of those 4 areas and the different objectives we have for those 4 areas. So what we'll do is we'll break that into 2 different components, meaning we're going to see where we are in 6 months, which is around December, how close we are to meeting that 1-year goal. And then at the end of next year, during our summer retreat, which we're going to have in July of this year, we'll take a look at, okay, how did we finish with that 1-year goal? And then we'll adjust our 3-year goals accordingly. So it'll be 2 times that first year. Okay.
And ultimately, we'll be measured when we do the advanced ed in 5 years. Ultimately.
Yeah, but it's nice to have a little closer.
Oh, yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, so year to year.
So does that mean you'll be back in December?
Yes, we can be, absolutely.
Yeah.
Or actually, maybe January, we'll have our data in December. Yes, we'll be back in January.
What did you determine the baseline from?
The baseline from is every department took baseline where they were at that moment in time. So it would be different
Test
from,
scores and
for CIA, it was absolutely test scores and student achievement. For retention of staff, it would be the numbers they had for the 16-17 school year. So with every department, they set up a different baseline, different indicator.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I think you all going to get a big boost from early childhood, because what they're seeing coming into the kindergarten, 20 points higher
Yes.
than the state?
Yes, it was.
You know, that's you're getting a smarter child, more kindergarten ready, so
Yeah.
y'all get a big help there.
Since you mentioned that, I don't know if this is appropriate or not, but our early childhood was recognized as a 5-star early childhood, which is just unbelievable. It's really
that's
big stuff.
huge.
Hopefully next month we can have a superintendent's report on that, but since you mentioned it, I thought I'd share.
And I love the photos.
Kim Lacey gets the credit there, so.
Great.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you all, excellent. Okay, so we're going to need an approval of that, of the plan.
Okay, do I hear a motion for the approval of the 2017 to 2022 district strategic plan?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed is none. Item 13, approval of revised certified evaluation plan.
You all have seen this plan before, but with the recent Senate Bill 1 changes legislative session, there were some things that did change. Mr. Beck is here today to discuss those items that have changed in our plan.
As Mr. Olsall said, Senate Bill 1 removes the requirement of PGS, which is our Professional Growth and Effectiveness System. Along with that, there were some required components to PGS that are no longer required that our committee may have decided to remove. Our committee is made up of 10 people. It's called the 50-50 committee, meaning 50% of the committee is administrators, 50% of the committee are teachers. And what I'm relaying to you is a certified evaluation plan that they have decided upon. This is not something we develop in-house, it's what the committee develops. The certified evaluation plan keeps many of the same characteristics of the old PGES program. For example, it still has a framework for teachers. They're still rated at 4 levels, either ineffective, developing, accomplished, or exemplary. There's just a few changes that we have with that. Number one, the committee has removed the student voice and student growth component from the teacher evaluation. They found that those components were good intended, but they just didn't give us the data that we need those to be generated from. So we're still going to be working on some issues with that in the future, but it will no longer be a part of the evaluation. The second component, and this goes with the passage of Senate Bill 1, is we've removed duplication of forms and moved all the forms into a teacher toolbox for each given area. Whether it's a teacher or a physical therapist, we have individual toolboxes for them so that all their evaluation forms will be in that individual toolbox. Next, peer evaluation was removed from the CEP. Just so you'll know, it was never a part of the evaluation, but it was referenced in the evaluation document. So what we felt to clarify for teachers, the committee felt, let's go ahead and take that totally out of the evaluation because it is not a part of the evaluation anyway, and we've moved that into our district instructional rounds language. So that didn't go away, it's just no longer referenced in the evaluation document. For the principals, we've removed the Val Ed. That was an added expense that KDE had forced upon us. We didn't get a lot of use out of it. The committee really didn't feel like we were getting the bang for our buck, and it was an expensive test out of Vanderbilt that we were required to use. We will still be using the TEL survey as we have for many years. And then lastly, the final evaluation numbers no longer have to go in the state SITS program online. Those numbers, as far as how many teachers were ineffective, developing, accomplished, or exemplary, they just go to HR with Mr. Downs. So in a nutshell, that's really the only differences between our previous plan and the one that we bring before you today.
It's going to be a better system, a little less burdensome on our staff, on our administrators. So.
Brad Hughes doesn't state work.
Yeah, he was with KSBA.
What's his last name? Hughes? Brad Hughes and KSBA talked about this and said that it was going to make the administrators' lives a lot easier because they're doing away with, like you said, some things that were multiple forms and this, that, and the other. He said it's supposed to make everybody's life a lot easier. So it's good to hear that.
That was the feedback that we got from the administrators, that this new plan will be much less cumbersome and able to get to the important components needed.
Very good.
Did it change the SPGES at all?
I don't think you're doing that anymore. I'm just kidding. No, we will continue to use our model. We can, one thing we've been able to do is, if you know, each year we sort of adapt that a little bit, so it just gives us greater freedom to do with it what we want. But it'll be very similar this year to what it was last year.
Could you explain the thinking behind, the change where, the HR person just gets the information about how much?
Yes, originally what that was meant to do was that each district was supposed to upload that data into the state, and it was actually going to become a part of our matrix. When we used to get the determination like Bardstown City Schools is a distinguished district based upon this data.
Yeah.
And it was the student data, and eventually they were supposed to add a component that was going to be about 10% of that being the teacher data, meaning here's your percentage of proficient teachers. And And since that never ended up becoming part of the reg, the state felt like, well, then we really don't need to collect all that data. That's just something you need to have locally. And that was the only reason they were going to collect it, because they eventually were going to grade us on that.
All right, very good.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Do we approve that?
Yeah, we need.
Okay. Do I hear a motion to approve the revised certified evaluation plan?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, there is none. Item 14, approval 2017-18 professional service contracts.
I think we have Mr. Lance Boston, yes, with us today. He's going to talk to us about these contracts and maybe why they're in June instead of August like normal. He'll explain all that.
Thank you guys for having me today. We've got a few of our professional service contracts. We used to do these later on in the school year, but we tried to start moving it up to the summer for your approval, so we go ahead and get with these folks and get a plan together prior to the school year starting. And I believe there should be 4 for you today. One is for Allison, as we refer to her, she goes by Brooke Ballard. She's a licensed clinical social worker that works with us, serving our students with IEPs that have also been identified as needing mental health counseling. We also have Mr. Josh Gabbard, who unfortunately over the past couple of years has been dealing with some health issues. So Brooke has taken a bigger role in helping out and alleviate his caseload whenever Josh is medically can't be here. So we'd like to continue to use Brooke. We have Mary Jane Reese, who does our academic assessing of our students who are referred for special education services. This is separate from what our school psychologists do in regards to cognitive evaluating and behavior observations and so forth. Mary Jane does more of just the academic testing. We're looking at specific learning disabilities and those sort of things. Then we have a music therapy contract from Lorinda Jones. She has an organization that she shares a music therapist with us, and we've been doing that for several years here in the district. It's probably one of the most well-received activities from kiddos, parents, and teachers. We've seen a lot of improvement in kids' communication during these sessions, and it's something we would like to continue. And then we have Miss Eva Diaz, who took over for Margaret Roby whenever she stopped doing our English language learners, what we call kind of extra service to our kids. We get a small grant from the state to use an individual. We really worked out well with Miss Diaz because she does speak Spanish. So she's really been able to make an impact in a lot of the lives of especially our Hispanic students in coordinating activities from school and home and working on tutoring activities and liaisoning with principals and families. So we've really enjoyed having her. So those are the 4 that I have for you guys today. This should be the only professional service contracts that I anticipate needing for the school year. Yes, sir.
Lance, we do have one more on the list we need to include or delete.
Okay.
Carrie Chowling.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. Yes. Carrie Chowning. Historically, we had contracted Carrie Chowning from Nelson County Schools. Carrie took a job with Jefferson County Schools last school year. So mid-year, we did a separate contract with Carrie to not use her through Nelson County, but contract with her as an individual. With their school schedule set up, we have so few students with vision impairments in the district. Whenever we do need an assessment, usually the JPS schedule works, and our schedule works out in such a way where she can do those on her break, or she'll come in after her working hours at JCPS to do an IEP meeting or provide guidance to some of our special education teachers on our visually impaired students. We only have, I believe, 2 visually impaired students in the school district, but they are identified as visually impaired, so we do have to, in some way, have a visually impaired teacher at least consult with those students and the families, and we do that through Ms. Chowning. Thank you. So, with your approval.
That's fine. I think I saw some of these on Facebook.
No, it's probably because my wife took a large. They're a little army of girl basketball team we're trying to start, I think.
Okay, item 14, do I hear a motion to approve the 2017-18 professional service contract as presented?
Moved.
Second? Second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, there are none.
All right, thank you all.
Item 15, approval of 2017-18 fee schedules, child care and food service.
Well, we have 3 areas of fees. One is early childhood, and we have no change there, so that's That's the same as it was last year. Childcare fees, as you know, they've gone up slightly, and part of the reason for that is a 2% raise that we give applies to them also, but it all comes from the fees for the childcare. None of it comes out of the district's tax budget. So anything that we pay childcare has to be self-generated through the fees for the services. So that's why we have to have a slight increase there. Plus, we've gone off campus in recent years, as you know, with rent because of our large growth. And so there's a little extra there that we weren't paying before. And our goal is to always break even in childcare. And just so you know too, we increased their pay just a little bit to make sure that they got an increase of the 2%, just like everybody else did. So that's why the fees have gone up there. And then in the lunchroom, we have a very slight increase of 10 cents in 3 of our areas, and that's only in the high school and then with our adult breakfast and lunch prices, because we're on the community eligibility provision for all the other schools. And that's a KDE mandate also. All right.
Board members, you have at your place there last year's fees, so you can compare to your iPad if you wanted to see what the difference is. So go ahead, Mr. Downs.
I was just saying, and the other thing is too, with childcare, it averages out to about $3 a day for their, $3 an hour for childcare, which is pretty good if you're in the childcare business. So as it goes all the way through, it's about $3 an hour per child. So it's very reasonable.
Yeah, not an increase, but.
No, not an increase, just that's the overall
Thank you.
pay.
And I do hear compliments all the time on our childcare.
Great. We love that. And just so you know, there's about 190 kids in our child care program, and we have 25 staff, with 19 of them being full-time. So it's a pretty large organization that you really don't realize how big it is. So, but it's a great service that we've had ever since we went to the year-round calendar. And Mr. Brown, I'm glad to hear that we hear a lot of good things about it.
Who's in charge of the child care?
We have a new child care director. Her name is Christy Vandeveter. She comes from Nelson County Family Resource. She is going to start July 1, and she will be in charge of it from there. Val did it for quite a few years, but she is turning the reins over to Christy. And we feel very fortunate that we have Christy with us. I think she'll be outstanding.
I know one little curly-headed girl that loves it.
Right. Well, just so you know too, that this time, we've had to open up another baby room in staff child care. We had one, and then a 1-year-old and a 2-year-old room, but now we have to have 2 baby rooms, which is from our staff, which is certainly job security, more students coming through the pipe. So
3 and 4-year-olds are going to go out to Pennsylvania Avenue.
well, no, the babies and the 1-year-olds will be at the staff child care. The 2-year-olds will move to Pennsylvania. The 3 and 4s were already there.
Okay.
So it's,
That's right, Mike. She's moving out there.
right.
Okay.
So we're looking forward to that also. We also got state approval for the room already, so we're ready to go. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Downs.
Do I have approval for the 2017-18 fee schedules for child care and food services?
So
Your motion. Second.
Second?
Discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed are none. Item 16, approval 2017-18 National School Lunch Application.
There are 3 parts to this application. I'm just going to quickly run over these, and feel free to ask me at the end if there's any questions. But there's the procurement certification. It's made up of 4 parts that you can see there. Basically, what we're doing is we're providing assurances that we will follow those 4 bullets that you see under those items. Then there's the NSLP, indirect cost. You may or may not realize, but I'll share with you that the Board of Education can determine if a food service program pays the overhead in their operation. For many years, it's been our tradition for us to cover electricity, utilities, things of that nature. So we have to make that decision. I recommend that we continue to cover those costs. And so we checked number 3, it says will not collect indirect costs from the food service program. And then the third part of this application is the CEP. I know how you all enjoy the acronyms and so forth. We just did the Certified Evaluation Plan, and now we're doing the Community Eligibility Provision. So don't be confused between the two. One's for human resource and one's for food service. We're in food service at the moment. There are a number of things there that they ask that we do. So we're agreeing to, if you can see letters A, B, C, and D, and I'll spare you me covering each one of those. I'm sure you've had a chance to look at those, but we will be in compliance with all of those. So essentially, the board chair and superintendent sign 2 of these, and the superintendent and the finance officer signs 1 of these. But we will need your approval for the entire application.
I hear a motion to approve the 2017-18 National School Lunch application.
Make a motion.
Second.
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item 17, approval leave of absence request.
Ask you to approve Jennifer Burks for maternity leave. Her due date is on July the 31st, and she'll be out at the beginning of school probably up till after the first 9 weeks at least. And she has taken Family Medical Leave Act, and all the paperwork is in excellent order.
Do I hear a motion to approve leave of absence for Jennifer Burks?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, there are none. Item 18, personnel resignations/retirements.
Make you aware of 2 resignations that we have. Our volleyball coach and biology teacher, Miss Felicia Sanchez, is taking a position in Ohio where she lived and grew up, and a great opportunity for her to go back. We certainly appreciate all that she's done with her volleyball program, and we'll sorely miss her. Lucretia Starnes is also going to be moving out of state to another location, has done a wonderful job. And then we have a retirement for Juanita Fogel in food service, been with us many years, and Ms. Fogel will be missed as well. Those 3 things I make you aware of. That's all I have.
I make a motion we don't approve Felicia Sanchez's resignation.
I understand. I wish I could support that. She is an extremely good person. Done great work for us.
Okay, your site-based council meetings are on here, and the last item for the day at 20 minutes to 2 is adjournment. Do I hear a motion to adjourn? Would people like to continue on? Do I hear a second?
Second.
All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed, or none. We are now adjourned.